everyone, RogueGold here, welcome back to The Division 2. And today we've got the Year 7 Season 2 Public Test Server Developer Stream, that's a mouthful, to dive into. That's right, today the devs went live to preview the new season of The Division 2. And wow, this includes staples that we are accustomed to with stuff like new seasonal modifiers, new gear to look at. The big highlight new feature, at least of this PTS, is a new open world mode called Retaliations. It's pretty darn cool, I'm really excited to try this out. So the top highlight pieces of information that you need to know is that the PTS begins for PC tomorrow. That's right, it's happening on a Thursday this time instead of a Friday. I'm probably not going to live stream this time around. It's just a huge technical headache to try and set that up on my end, but I'm going to do plenty of videos, don't worry. So again, expect that coverage to begin tomorrow and head through the weekend. Additionally, they did confirm that patch notes for this public test server are going to go live pretty much right after the stream. They're likely up by the time I'm posting this. So when we get those, I'll be sure to link them down in the description of this video so that you have those to look at. But yeah, this is all kicking off right now. Moving on to the contents of the stream itself, we were joined by Yannick, who is the game's creative director, and Leo, who is our new community developer, and they hopped on to reveal the contents of Year 7 Season 2, as well as show us some live gameplay. They started off by saying that yes, right now we are in the final stretch of the Crossroads season. There's a lot happening across the community, but they wanted to take the time to look ahead for what's next. For one, there is the bug that is currently happening with the Year 7 Season 1 Climax mission that released yesterday. If you're lucky, like myself, who has run that mission multiple times by now and not run into the issue, there is a bug where the final boss will basically just not come back out and remain unkillable and your group can progress. It's not good. So they did say that a card was added as of yesterday morning to the known issues board. They are looking into this issue. It is a top level priority right now within the team, and they just wanted to emphasize that them being here does not mean that a task force is not working right now to find a fix for that issue. So they plan to have that resolved in-game as soon as they can. They also shouted out that stretch goals will begin in-game next week. That includes the opportunities for the first time ever since their introduction to get items like the Lexington, the Turmoil, the Caretaker, along with a bunch of other rewards. One detail that they did confirm here that we didn't have previously is that those 3 items specifically will drop with maxed out stats just like their original versions did. Some people were worried that you were going to have to farm a lot to get a good copy of it. Nope, it's going to be just the same as it was before. So we got that coming up. They also shouted out that they did a community polling on social medias for a new outfit to go into the store. Not a new outfit rather, but a returning one, but this time you could buy it for textiles instead of premium credits. So the outfit from that poll is in the store right now. It's the Aces outfit from, I believe, the Necessary Tactics apparel event back in the day, but they did say they plan to do more of these things in the future. So if you want to vote on this, have a say in what you can spend textiles on in the store, be sure to partake in those. And then finally, they mentioned how Gamescom is coming up next week. There was a teaser video posted by them yesterday talking about the Division 2's involvement. It seems like we are going to get a lot of big news beyond just what we're talking about today. I recapped all of that yesterday. I will link that video down below in case you want to check it out. But let's get to it and start with the most important thing, shall we? And that is the new feature coming to the game called Retaliations. So they said the overall thematic to this season, without spoiling any story bits, is about territory control. And so while this feature plays into that directly, it is not just a seasonal feature, right? It's going to remain in the game beyond the season until the game, is done years in the future. But yeah, it's called Retaliations. The basic idea is that each of the enemy factions across any of the 3 maps, so, free players can do this in DC, but you can also play this feature in in New York and Brooklyn. But when you engage with any enemy faction, they build a threat gauge as you eliminate them and take out different objectives. This is somewhat akin to the Nemesis threat gauge within Descent. Now, when you max out that gauge, you then have the option to trigger a retaliation within a specific named zone. This is within a new dedicated tab on the map that you go to, and you can willfully activate it. Now, triggering a retaliation puts you into a new instance right through a loading screen. You then spawn in the safe house for that zone, and from then on, you have a limited amount of time to fight through all of the retaken content within that zone. So even though I may not show up on the PTS, the intention here is to have a pretty short timer available for you to do, but that can then be extended by getting kills of the enemies, by completing different bits of content, all of that. So that is the basic setup, right? Building a heat gauge for the open world, you then can trigger these, and you have this very focused amount of gameplay. The question though is, why would you want to do that beyond the inherent replayability factor that they did bring up? Well, the exclusive reward for this Retaliations mode is a new form of exotic crafting, where there will be ways to target which exotics you want to get, and then by completing certain bits of retaliation, you unlock a blueprint, which you can then go at the base, use retaliation-specific materials, and directly craft those exotics that maybe have just been eluding you in targeted loot. Maybe you want some for expertise donations, whatever, you can now get them and target them within the gameplay. And they said that to narrow down which ones you're going after, each faction should have a specific pool of exotic blueprints that can be awarded. They did say that the cleaners and wreckers will have their own rewards. However, their materials and their rewards will not be locked out for people who don't own the DLCs. But if you do want the rewards that they offer, it will be made easier by having those DLCs and playing Retaliations on those maps. We'll come back to a little bit about Retaliations in a minute, but they then took a detour to talk about the Year 7 Season 2 modifiers. Now this time around, everything is about factions and territory control. So the global modifier, which I'm realizing I didn't write the name down for, but as you will read in the description, there is a buff given to you. That buff consists of rate of fire and damage, and that is granted in scaling amounts depending on how much of the open world you control. So it's a very interesting concept, but as you can see, they break down the total number of named zones, how many of those are currently contested or liberated, and how much of the buff you are being given. Now the important note here is that this scales depending on map size. So you can play this in DC, and I think it says there are 11 named zones, but if you take this to New York or Brooklyn, it will then scale down the number of zones but increase the amount of buff you get per zone under your control. So I think 30% is the total amount. If you play in DC, then obviously 30 divided by 11, whatever that works out to. But in Brooklyn, theoretically, each zone gives you 15%, right? So it works across all of the maps, which is awesome. They were unable to confirm how this modifier specifically works in content like off-site missions or countdowns, stuff like that. So we're gonna have to wait to the PTS to get official confirmation on those things, but that is the overall idea. Now getting into the active modifiers, there are 5 this time around, just like last season. Now they scrolled through these kind of quickly. We'll have to, fully investigate in the patch notes. But in general, there's ones for I think the Outcast one makes you really tanky. You get a lot of resilience. There's a cleaner inspired one that deals with burning and you then kind of heal yourself. The one that I think is based around the hyenas looks really cool. When you activate it, you lose all of your armor and you're restricted to only hip firing. You can't ADS, but you gain a ton of health and you do a ton of damage. So that sounds like a really interesting one to change up gameplay. So we have those. The passive modifiers this season are then split between 2 categories, which is universal and faction. So an example of the universal one is that killing any faction's assault archetype will grant you hollow point ammo. That's right, the stuff from the ongoing directive set. Whereas if you were to look at one in the faction section, it would say, this is an example that I'm giving, if you take down an outcast heavy, like the guy with the sledgehammer, then you would get some kind of specific bonus. So these are going to be really tailored for what kind of content you're playing, what factions you're fighting. I'm sure these will be switched up a lot throughout gameplay. Finally, they took a look at the hostile modifiers. There are going to be 3 this time around, and these are pretty basic bonuses just based off of combat effects for the same 3 archetypes that we're used to, which is damage, tanking, and electronics or gadgets. So again, we'll have to dive into these more once we get the patch notes, but there you go. The only other thing I wanted to comment on in this section is that there is one new kind of interesting concept introduced here, and that is that with the active modifiers, they now have a leveling feature to them. So basically, when you unlock them, they're at level 1 or whatever the base level is, but then through specific methods, which are detailed within the active modifier descriptions, you need to then rank those up, and they will then become more powerful as the season goes on. Later on, I caught that this was also tied into the journey objectives. You have to rank these up to get some of those journey objectives done. So, interesting concept here. We'll see how it plays out. Moving on, let's take a look at the new gear that we're getting in Year 7 Season 2. This first one is pretty awesome. You might have seen it in the gameplay. This is going to be the Tempest. It is a fully automatic pistol, the first ever one in the Division 2. Now they did confirm, I want to clarify here, that this will be the exotic this season that is awarded from the Climax mission, so we're not going to get this at season launch. We're going to have to wait later on, just like the Tinkerer was this season and this week. But yeah, it's a fully automatic pistol. Now the talent grants you 25% amplified damage for 20 seconds once your shield is broken. Interesting concept. I'm sure at first some people might be like, nah, I don't really like that. The thing is though, at least what's going on in my mind, what if you make a build centered around your shield breaking? Like you intentionally carry a weak shield, get it broken, and then you just go on a rampage with your pistol. I don't know. I'm sure there's going to be plenty of things to dive into here, but that's very cool. We've also got the Shroud, which is a new exotic marksman rifle. This one gives you 125 I did not say that incorrectly, 125% amplified damage for the highest ranking enemy within the hierarchy. Now this is a new concept that they're introducing with this and the next exotic that we're going to take a look at. But basically in the description of the talent, it breaks down the, total number of enemies that you can fight within the game to 3 tiers. So tier 1, 2, and 3, and it's basically just how elite or veteran those enemies are, right? So I think tier 3 or tier 1, I don't remember which is highest and lowest, but includes like hunters and rogues, and then it would go down to like your regular assault archetype, and then I think the bottom one is like skill gadgets, right? So whatever is within your vicinity, that is what you are getting the amplified damage to. So very interesting concept. We also then need to take a look at the overdogs, which is the exotic gloves, and this has basically the flipped or reverse talent, where this gives you 30% amplified damage to the lowest ranking enemy within the hierarchy. So Shroud is the highest, Overdogs is the lowest. Is there some synergy there? Maybe. We have the Urban Lookout. This is the new brand set. It's going to be giving you 10% accuracy for the 1-piece bonus, 5% skill efficiency for the 2, and 30% marksman rifle damage for the 3. So another one of these kind of mishmash brands that's giving you bonuses from each category. Looking at the gear set, I'm intrigued by this one. It's called Tipping Scales. The 2-piece gives you 30% magazine size. The 3-piece gives you 30% LMG damage. And the 4-piece talent says that when you shoot, you build up stacks to a cap of 50. Those stacks grant you amounts of weapon handling and crit damage. Now you lose 6 stacks per second while not shooting. However, no stacks will be lost so long as you have an enemy suppressed within the vicinity. That part I think is unique to tie in the suppression mechanic to a gear set. They showed off the 2 amp talents. The chest piece takes your stack capacity up to 75, whereas the backpack takes your crit damage bonus from 2 to 4% per stack. I don't know how this one is going to compare like stats and damage wise to something like Striker, but I'm very interested to try it out on the PTS. And then finally, we've got a new weapon talent coming our way, along with new named weapons as per usual. So we have the Instigator Marksman Rifle as well as the Achilles Rifle, and these come with Perfect Soft Spot, which grants you 24% weapon damage. I don't know what the duration was for, but when you destroy enemy weak points, and they said that that should be around 19%. On the normal version. So yeah, new soft spot talent. Alright, shifting back to Retaliations, they went and did some live gameplay of this and clarified a few more points while they were going through. For one, if you notice the timer on the screen being like excessively long while they're playing through this, that's not intended. They said that's a bug for the PTS. The timer for these is intended to start out pretty short, right? However, you then build up time as you go through. If you kill enemies, if you complete objectives, whatever, that will increase your timer for how long you have left. Of course, if that timer runs out, the retaliation is over and you leave. But the goal is to get through the zone and not run out of time. There will be certain restrictions and conditions during a retaliation. For example, they said that like control point mechanics are a bit streamlined. They said that you cannot fast travel during a retaliation, right? It's restricted. And one other really cool part that we only got a brief little glimpse at is that there is something called kill squads within retaliations. Basically, these are groups of named enemies that will hunt you down as you play through a given retaliation. Yannick was taken out by a squad of them at one point, and you can see on the breakdown that it's just like a ton of named enemies. So this will just be one extra obstacle and hurdle that the game throws at you while you're trying to go through. They did say that eliminating these enemies in the kill squad overall will grant you a greater amount of time for your retaliation timer. But the question is that they posed, is that going to be worth it? Do you have enough time to take them on? It's all kind of a risk versus reward scenario. But apparently these kill squads do grant you, I don't know if it was like they're the only ones who can give it, or if it's just a higher chance, but they are heavily tied into the exotic blueprints reward side of this. So it does seem like engaging with these kill squads is going to be pretty worthwhile. They did confirm that Retaliations is a 1-life mode, meaning if you're playing solo and you die, don't have a revive hive, you're done. We saw that happen to Yannick when he then went to the post screen. And one other interesting detail is that once you trigger a retaliation, again, it's in its own instance. You're not technically like within the same open world, but once you return to the open world, whatever control points were like captured from you while you went through, or the ones that are still in hostile control, that will remain persistent again when you return to the main game. So pretty interesting there. Now at this point in the stream, something happened that in all of my 9 years of watching Division streams I've never seen.
Yeah, sure. So each sounds like we have a fire alarm, people.
Wow. That's right. So midstream, the fire alarm at Massive Studios went off. Don't worry though, everybody is safe. They posted a picture. They made it outside. Everything's good. I don't know what the cause of the alarm was, but apparently firefighters showed up. They gave everybody the all clear to return to the building. They actually then went live again after this. The stream is almost over, but we have a few additional points to go over. They confirmed that with this update, even though we're getting a bunch of new gear, and per usual that would raise the expertise cap, they are capping expertise progression at level 30. So no more are you going to be able to continue getting damage and stats off of that system. Speaking to Retaliations, they confirmed that it will work in solo and group. You can play it however you like. They did take a moment to showcase the new Retaliation section of the crafting menu, where specifically you delve into the exotic blueprint side of things. So you have blueprints for all of the different exotics that you can earn again by playing this Retaliations mode. There is also a material conversions page, because again, you're going to be getting different materials from different factions, so you can pay some amount of credits, I believe, to swap those over. And as they mentioned before, even if you don't own the New York and Brooklyn DLCs, you're not locked out from getting the Rikers and Cleaners rewards, and that is through some caches that you can buy here, where you can get some of those materials. But yeah, for the most part, that was the entirety of the Year 7 Season 2 PTS. They ended off, as usual, by saying feedback is wanted and needed. They're going to open up the various forums within the game's Discord server. This is the only phase of the PTS, they said, so anything you have to share on Retaliations, the new gear, whatever, it's up for change, and be sure to give it to them, and we will see how this all shapes up heading towards launch. That's all I've got for you on this one, folks. I would love to know your thoughts, whatever you're thinking after getting through this recap. Of course, what do you think about stuff like the modifiers, the gear, but most specifically and importantly, I would love to know your thoughts on this new Retaliations mode. Does it seem engaging to you, interesting? Do you think it'll have a good amount of replayability? Again, I'm certainly excited to check it out on the PTS starting tomorrow. Stay tuned for all my videos and coverage of that coming up this weekend. Once again, this is like a very busy 2 weeks in the Division 2. We got the Climax this week, now the PTS, we got Gamescom next week, but we're getting through it. I appreciate you watching, and yeah, until I see you next, RogueGold out.